Now, what was that last question? This is the big one, baby. This is the big one. Where is he? Where is he? Can you succinctly explain self-remembering? Okay, baby. This will be the last question. Let's go. Let's go. So, you all want to know what self-remembering is. First thing, let's lay the foundation. In the fourth way, there are two things. Self-observation and self-remembering. These two things are not the same. They are completely different. What are they? Why are they different? What's the difference? And this is one question I say, if you want to go into the world of the fourth way and you think your fourth way teacher is dodgy, ask them this question. What's the difference between self-remembering and self-observation? It's the best one. Now, here's how I would answer that question. So, self-observation has to do with, I'll just do it down here, has to do with the human machine. The H&M. Human machine dictates that you have different cylinders within you. Intellect, you have your emotion, you got your motor functions, and you got instinct, baby. And you can also say you've got your sexual cylinder and you've got the higher cylinders, but let's just stick with these. And self-observation is the act of... I'm going to draw an eye here. I'm such a good artist with this. Self-observation is you got this eye, and the eye is looking down. The eye is observing. The eye is observing the human machine. This is what self-observation is doing, and this is what it renders. Self-observation renders knowledge of the human machine. Renders knowledge of your intellect. What do you think about? What are the cyclical thoughts that you think about? Emotions. Are you an emotional person? What emotions do you feel? What emotions arise during your day? What's the interconnectedness between your intellect and your emotions? What about your motor cylinder? Your motor cylinder, your tension, how much tension, how your body position sits. Is your spine straight? When you walk, do you have your shoulders back and your chest out, Jordan Peterson style? Instinct is everything inside your body. So your heating, your internal heating, your blood pressure, your flavor, like what food you likes, because that's impacting the flavor, and the enjoyment you get from the different flavors is an instinctual thing. So it's like all these different things are interconnected. And self-observation is rendering knowledge of something. It's rendering knowledge of your persona. Or, as the Gurdjieffians would put it, let me just go add another one, chief feature, which renders knowledge of your persona. Persona mentioned your mask. Your personality. Your personality is a construct. Your personality is the daughter of time. Your personality is what? It's your biological hereditary makeup combined with society, combined with social pressures, the friend group that you have, and also zodiacal, more esoteric things like zodiacal energies impacting you. That's what your persona is made out of. And fundamentally, via studying the human machine and its cylinders, via studying the functioning of your human machine, it renders the knowledge of specifically the makeup of the persona. Okay, cool. So what's self-remembering? Self-remembering is built on the back of a completely different teaching. Not the human machine, but on the division between personality versus essence. So what's your essence? Your essence is your little spark of life. The essence is the thing in you that's perennial. The essence in you is the thing that goes from life to life to life, okay? The personality is created in this life. The essence is the immortal part of you. Now here's the thing. Self-remembering. Self-remembering is not a technique. Self-observation to a degree is a technique. Some people align it with a technique kind of like a psychoanalysis of the self. I have a video on that, how people kind of get that wrong. self-observation really at its highest level is more akin to like clairvoyance, but instead of looking at auras outside, it's clairvoyance with the eye turned inwards. But self-remembering is not a technique. In Gurdjieff's the work, he talks about different levels of consciousness. He gives like a base level, level 1, which is like basically people who are asleep. Level 2, which is people in just your normal everyday consciousness. I wrote W there for waking state, but I'll just call that the daily consciousness. And then 3, there is the awake state. And 4 is objective consciousness. Baby, that's where we all want to get, baby. Hell yeah. Objective conch. Now this third level of consciousness is awakening, but sometimes it's called self-remembering. Self-remembering is not a technique. Self-remembering is a level of consciousness, or a state of consciousness, or a state of being. Okay, cool. What do you do about that? How do you get into it? So you can get into a state of self-remembering with technique. It's just the whole point of that is to tell you self-remembering itself is not a technique. So it's people who talk and say, oh, I'm doing self-remembering now. I have problems with that. I have problems with those people. So the technique usually given is called divided attention. So the idea is you're a human. I'm going to draw a human body here. And there are objects in the world. This is a tree, okay? This is a tree. Now, normal people with their eyes see a tree, and that's it. What they don't see is the representation, the correspondent associations that arise within them. The whole point of divided attention is to have an awareness on your internal world while you're also aware of your environment. So your consciousness, instead of going in one direction, has become bi-directional. And then eventually you want to make it multi-directional. But this is the thing. And the example I always use is, imagine you walk down the street and then you just kind of get sad and you don't know why. But if you're a self-observant, if you're in a state of divided attention, this is where self-observation can kind of, if done properly, can lead to self-remembering, but nonetheless. Divided attention. If you're walking down the street and you're dividing attention properly, say you walk down the street and you hear something, like a house, and you hear a kid getting yelled at. That is an object, technically. It is an impression that comes into you. It enters through the gates of perception. We all have 5 gates of perception, the main gates of perception. When any impression enters in you, it will magnetically attract an impression like itself. So when you hear someone yelling at a kid, what's more than likely is a memory of you yelling at a kid will arrive, or it could evoke a memory of when you were a kid and you were getting yelled at. And if you're not conscious of that, you're just walking down the street like la la la, and you hear someone yelling, you're like, oh, and then you just keep walking la la la, and that memory starts to play within you without you being aware of that. You kind of get this emotion of like you being yelled at as a kid, and you're like, oh man, you just become kind of down. But if you have that divided attention, this weird thing happens where you consciously perceive that coming in, and you consciously perceive it arriving within you, and something happens. You don't get affected by the internal impression. It's this weird, like the double split experiment, the gay double split experiment, where you look at a thing and the outcome changes. It's literally the same internally. It's like there are cycles in you, there are processes in you, but as soon as you place a kind of attention on them, and once again, you're not doing anything. You're not like, I'm going to change. I need to psychologically, I'm CBT, cock and ball talk. I'm going to NLP, change my like structure of my, no, you're not doing anything. You're not doing a technique. You're not manipulating. You're just placing an awareness within yourself while you're in the world, and you're watching, you're noticing, you're becoming a noticer. As impressions come in and something arises, you just notice the interaction, and that's it. That's it. What happens when you do this? When you do this for long enough, something happens, because there's an object and then there's the thing in you. You gain a sensation that is, there is a secret third thing. Because it's like, what are you? You're not the impression coming in, and you're also not the reaction. So this weird disassociation, words are so fucking bad. Disassociation has a wrong connotation, but I'm going to use the term disassociation happens. This weird disassociation happens where you feel yourself as the something else, a secret third thing that just is observing the process of the arising and the entering. You feel, and it's always hard talking about this, especially like, because this is fundamentally, this is a form of metacognition. And if you describe this to someone who's like neurotic, who's high in neurosis, they always say the same thing. They're always like, oh yeah, I've been doing this my entire life. No. No. If you've been doing this your entire life, you would have higher being bodies coming out of your butthole, baby. Like, if you hear something esoteric and you're like, I've been doing this already, there's something you haven't understood, okay? Because esoteric praxis is a cause, and if done long enough and properly with correct mode, it reaps an effect. An effect happens. So if you don't have the proper cause, you never get the effect. So if you see this or hear this and go, I've been doing this my entire life, and you don't get the effects that I'm about to talk about, then you haven't been doing it. Now, this thing here, what is this? This is the problem whenever I like talk about this, because let's just say, so you got the human machine, you got your cylinders, emotions, you got your intellect, your thoughts, your reason, you got your emotions, your feelings, you got your motor, the somatic sensations of your body, and then you got this other thing. You got this other thing, and in between them is the mask. Let me draw like a crappy mask here. Like it's like a little clown mask. And then this is like the secret third thing. This is the thing, okay? All you're doing in self-remembering is sitting in this thing. The consciousness is becoming aware of itself, is self-realizing. It's like an eye that can see itself, or another example would be like, imagine a projector, a movie projector, but the light bends back and illuminates the projector. That's fundamentally what's happening. And when you kind of describe this, people are like, oh yeah, but don't you fall into like an infinite regress? Like you think and then you think, it's like, no. That's thinking. Thinking is a function of the human machine. You're not doing a function. You turn away from the function. Oh yes, I feel it. And when you get this emotion, it's like, no. Emotions are a function of the emotional cylinder. You're not doing that. You're bracketing away. You're turning away from the human machine, i.e., you're turning away from the persona. This is why self-remembering has to do not with the human machine, but a distinction between personality and essence. All of what people think they are has to do with personality. The construct, the functioning, what they do in their day. No, you're turning away from that. When you bracket away, when you're ascetic and you bracket away your thoughts, your memories, your impulses, your desires, what's left? When you get an onion and you peel away the skin right down to the core, what's left? The scent, the essence. What's left of you when you bracket everything away? Just the essence. That's what you're trying to get. And functionally, Gurdjieff is trying to get you to do this actively in life. Now, I'm just going to keep yapping here. I know people are like, oh, but what? I've got questions. Let me keep going. So how do you know you've achieved, or you've kind of gotten into the state of self-remembering? How do you know that you've attained divided attention? Because I'll tell you now, if you've done practices similar to this, you know what this state feels like, and you'll also like agree. This state is slippery. Like, you'll be in this state and then it'll just slip out without you noticing. Like, you'll be in it one moment and then someone will talk to you and it's gone. Or like, you'll be in it one moment and then you'll move your body in some way and it's gone. Even like, I remember one point where I was like standing and I was looking kind of at a scene and I managed to evoke this state within myself. And like, I could look at a forest or I could kind of look at a city. And when I looked at the city, it kind of evoked these impressions in me, which I just kind of, I couldn't not fall into. But if I just looked at like nature, it was interesting. It was easier to maintain divided attention. And then this state that arose from divided attention, I was able to kind of be in that state longer looking at nature. So it's like even the quality of even the quality of the impression that comes in can affect, can have an effect on like how this arises, how this state arises. Like, you know, with your health, you can eat a packet of Lay's chips, or you can just like eat a nice, you know, premium steak with some wine. You know what I'm talking about? Grass-fed baby. Now, it's slippery. Self-remembering is slippery. How do you know you're in a state of self-remembering? I'm going to describe something here. I call it... Ooh. I'm spelling with a paintbrush, guys. Give me a break. The unique. This is my own concept. When you experience self-remembering, what is it like? Now, Ouspensky has this analogy in his book. When he talks about self-remembering, he said something like, the flavor of self-remembering is when you're a kid and you go to a place you've never been before. And you're in a new place. This... I really like this example because I know what he's talking about, but I've told this to people before and then they've been like, oh yeah, nostalgia. And it's like, no. No, oh yeah, I get it. Inner child. No. Self-remembering is not nostalgia and it's not your inner child. Well, I mean, anyway. It's your essence, which maybe in some very high levels of New Age slop you could equate to essence. Okay, what do I mean by the unique, this state? Have you ever done a really long meditation session and then something's happened and you've had an experience, and it's not necessarily a visual experience, and it's not necessarily a somatic experience, and it's not necessarily something you've heard, but you've experienced something in your meditation that feels... You could call it kind of like bliss, but you know when you were a kid and you were happy? And then there was that point when you grew up and you were like, man, I'm not happy anymore. But remember like when you were an adult and you remembered to a time when you were a kid and you were happy. There's this state that arises that's unique. If something is truly unique, how do you describe it? You can't, but your mind loves associating, so it'll associate anyway. What is the closest thing to something that is truly unique and can't be described? The closest thing is when you were a kid, when you were fresh on this earth, and you went to a new place that you'd never been before, it impacted your consciousness in a particular way. That's what Ouspensky is talking about. That's what Ouspensky is talking about. He's not talking about nostalgia. He's not talking about your inner child. He's talking about And once again, it's not your mind, it's not your emotion, it's not your motor cylinder, it's not your persona. It's the impact, the stance that your consciousness was in when it was receiving an impression for the first time when you're a kid. When you get into the state of self-remembering, it renders a particular flavor, which I call the unique. And if you've done this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't done it, that's as best as I can describe it. Now, you want to go a little deeper into self-remembering? This state is slippery. We've established that, okay? What's the problem with the slippery state is if you just do more self-remembering, it doesn't work. Now, things that may help you maintain self-remembering are sitting practice. Everyone should have a sitting practice at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day if you can. And there are sitting practices in the fourth way. There's one in particular in Search of the Miraculous where he talks about using your attention, and placing it on the nose and then moving from the nose to the right thumb and then to the right big toe and then the left big toe and then the left thumb and then back to the nose. It's like you go through this cycle of attention. And it's like you're doing this practice to cultivate attention so that when you're like in the world and you're trying to maintain your divided attention, it's not a mental activity. You're not fantasizing and thinking about what it would be like to self-remember. You're just doing divided attention naturally as you can. You're being as natural as you can. You're not trying to force a technique and manipulate things. You're being as natural as you can. And in that natural way, self-remembering is arising within you. You're cultivating a natural, effortless attention in your sitting practices. So sitting practice is good. The other thing you can do this is a technique to maintain the state of self-remembering. It's called rolling attention. So, now this is going to be hard to describe. When you're walking, say you're doing self-remembering. There's a sentence, doing self-remembering. Say you're in a state of self-remembering. You're in a shopping mall and you're walking down the shopping mall. What are you looking at? What's coming in? Shit tons of stuff's coming in, bro. And everything is calling for you. You want to, everything's calling you. Ads here, shops there, smells, you know, the women, babies and strollers crying, you know, like everything calls to your attention. You know, you go past a McDonald's and you're like, oh, maybe I should get it. Everything calls to you to react. What is rolling attention? So say you've managed to divide your attention and you're just looking at your internal reactions. One thing you can do, so this is the opposite of it when you're in meditation and you just focus on one thing. If you try to just focus on one thing in the world, everything's in a state of flux, everything's moving, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. When you are walking through a shopping mall, place your attention on something, someone, and allow that impression to go in and allow the reaction to arise. Notice, do the first part, and then immediately, once you've received the reaction and the impression, and you know, like, it's hit, roll your attention onto another object. Sometimes it can even be on the same person. Like you look at a person and it actually evokes something, but then you look at something about them, your attention zooms in, maybe to their hair, maybe to their necklace, maybe to a piece of their clothes, and then just roll off onto something next to them. Oh, there's a shop there. And then like immediately, but it's like immediate, the shop's there. What's in the shop? Say it's a juice shop. Juice enters into you, the reaction comes up, but you don't stay there, you immediately roll onto something else. You are surfing the impressions as this wave upon wave hits you. And via rolling attention, you cease to get entangled in any of, and it's hard to talk about because it's like, oh yes, I look at a person and Richard said to look at their hair and then their thing, and it's like, no, just notice. It's just notice. Don't become autistic about it. Don't turn it into a technique. Just be as natural as you can. And then if this sensation arises, as you're doing it, just like kind of roll your attention off from one thing to another, even roll into another sense. Like your eyes, no matter where your eyes go, you can feel yourself becoming entangled. Just move your attention into your ears, because there's going to be a shop still blasting like some, I don't know, some techno or something, and it's like you can use the impression of your ears to kind of maintain it. Even, especially your body. If you feel yourself losing it, bring your attention back into your body. Your body is in the moment. Your body becomes a linchpin. So you continuously roll your attention through the gates of the senses. Now, what happens if you do this? So I've talked about the unique. Now I'll talk about the other thing. Here's your consciousness. When you experience the world, you consciously perceive things. As you consciously perceive things in the world, you filter out a lot of the impressions. So even though your consciousness extends as far as your eyes can see, as far as your ears can hear, the truth is you only experience this amount. Unless, you particularly put your attention on your eye and then you see further than your normal field. But fundamentally, you filter things out because, you got to filter. In this world, and this is intelligence. The person who's more intelligent filters more. Intelligence isn't just calculation or being good at memorizing. Intelligence is filtering. What differentiates a chess master from a normie is a chess master can filter out all of the bad moves, and so they don't need to calculate every single thing. It's instantaneous. They have a really strong filter. The problem of having a strong filter is it disconnects you from reality. This is why highly intellectual people can sometimes say the most retarded things. And it's also why highly intellectual people really struggle in work like this. Because in this work, you're not increasing the intellect, the filter. You're actually loosening the filter to allow the consciousness expanded and to experience the world. Hence, like, great geniuses where they really were intellectually mighty, they had their biggest aha moments when their filter was loosened and they were dreaming or whatever. So it's like, we have this filter on us. What happens when you start self-remembering? You start self-remembering, you feel the unique, so you know it's working. You feel what I mentioned, divided attention. It's slippery, you do rolling attention, you maintain it. As you do it, as you maintain all of this, what happens is, when you're at the airport and you come off the plane and your ears are like clogged up, and then as you come off, they pop, and all of a sudden it's like someone turned up the volume and you're like, whoa, I can hear again. You know that experience? Something like that takes place when you self-remember, because you see this area that you filter out. When you self-remember properly, the filter loosens and the area actually expands. So I'm not saying when you self-remember your ears pop. I'm saying if you self-remember properly and you're maintaining it properly, one of the effects is your conscious area expands and more impressions come in. So it's not that your ears have popped, but it's as if your ears have popped, and you just notice things that you wouldn't notice normally. You notice more noise than normally. You notice things have more color than they do more normally. You just kind of know, it's hard. It's almost close to an aesthetic sense, but I don't want to connect this to anything, because then it's like, yes, cultivate the aesthetic sense. And it's like, no. You're not you're not creating a technique. Don't get autistic about it. You're supposed to be doing something natural. This whole thing is to return the consciousness to being in its most natural state, fundamentally. Hence why technique doesn't work. If you're manipulating something, you're just manipulating the human machine and structurally transferring different weird kind of egoical things from one place to another and changing the persona, the values of the persona. You're not doing anything here in the essence. This is the essence. When the consciousness sits in itself, remembers its own sense of being, the filter loosens, it expands, more impressions come in. And so you'll notice things you don't normally notice. And this can be that every now and then you get something that's a little bit weird. Actually, that didn't really work out. Let me get this art piece here and just shrink that now. If you maintain a level of self-remembering long enough, you know, you're in the state of the unique, you've done rolling attention, and your consciousness, the filter has loosened and your consciousness has expanded, naturally things will happen. If you are amongst people, something like this will happen, where you'll look at a person, the impression comes in, and then something arises in you, an image, a reaction, but the thing that arises in you isn't from you. Like, you become very accustomed to your own flavors. You know what's your reaction, what's your memory, what's your impulse. Something arises in you that's not of you when you're looking at another person. It's their internal world. You get a representation of what they're thinking or feeling. And I don't want to say it's like you gain telepathy at this point. And I'm not saying that I'm telepathic at all. I'm just saying it's like, if you are doing self-remembering properly, you will gain an extra normal phenomenological perception that's as if you've telepathically gotten something from someone. That can be something that arises. And actually, it's not super impressive and like, oh, I'm achieving something. It's actually annoying, because it's like, it's not normal, it's not supernatural. It's not normal, but it's just kind of like, oh my god, it's enough to like trip you up and be like, wait a second. And that trips you out of self-remembering, and it becomes annoying, and you're just like, god damn it, I'm trying to self-remember, shut the fuck up, everybody. Anyway, sorry for swearing, guys. And this happens as well, even if you're in nature. So it's like, you know, Ouspensky talks about this, he feeling the buildings of St. Petersburg talking to him. Or if you're in nature, it's like, you know, the elemental spirits. I'm not saying they're elemental spirits, I'm not saying you talk to them through this method, but it's as if, you know, if you're going for a nature walk and you do self-remembering, do self-remembering, and the cause is placed properly, divided attention, you've experienced the unique, you've done rolling attention and maintained it long enough that you felt the ears popping and the expansion, it can be as if, you know, a little gnome is speaking to you, or the wind blows through the trees and everything starts talking, and you're just like, guys, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to self-remember here. This is really distracting. And it's this like, no, that's just it. It's something extra. It's not schizophrenia, okay? Basically, your consciousness is just naturally expanding, and it's naturally expanding beyond the normal limits. I'm not going to say it's supernatural, it's just extra normal. And it's hard. And it's not like it maintains that, because, you know, once you've done that, you know, once you come out of the forest, once you get back into the car, once you get home and you go to sleep, you wake up and it's gone. It's like, this isn't permanent. This is just building these experiences. We're not supposed to have, you're not supposed to go after them like, oh, Richard told me if I self-remember enough, I'm going to speak to the gnomes. It's like, no, this is just a litmus test that you're going in the right direction. This experience is showing that you've done the right result, because what we're doing is, once again, we're trying to not cultivate persona, we're trying to cultivate spirit, we're trying to cultivate essence, we're trying to cultivate consciousness. This thing here You could say this self-remembering that we go through is almost like an equivalent for Samadhi. But Samadhi is dead water Samadhi. If the gong goes off and you get up and Samadhi ends, that's dead water Samadhi. That's not real Samadhi. What you want is river-like Samadhi. And this is the thing that everyone gets wrong. It's not about self-realization. It's about self-actualization. You self-realize and then you go, wow, and then you come out of the experience and it's over. What you want is something, you know, dependent origination. Everything is dependent on everything else. Well, what's independent? What's truly independent? There is something that's truly independent, but if it's truly independent, then it's not the thing you experience in meditation, because when the gong goes off, it ends. Therefore, the so-called experience you had in meditation, the so-called samadhi you had, was dependent on your practice. What all of this is doing is it's giving us a flavor of the other side, and we're trying to pull that in. We're getting a flavor of this, and we're trying to actualize it and pull it into the persona. Pull it in to the functioning of the human machine. Because usually, the human machine acts how? Your ideas are given to you. Your emotions are just copied off of your friends and family. Your motor functions and what you do in life is copied off of society and bound by society. All of the content of all of your cylinders in your human machine has arrived from an external place, most of it. Through internal practice, through self-remembering, you're trying to pull in a solar force into your human machine and reorganize your human machine into something else. This is Park Dog being duty. You're trying to achieve this state. So it's like, and this is true death. You are dying. The you were before is dead and it's being replaced by something else. Okay? You get it? This is self-remembering is the key to everything, not self-observation. Self-observation is just an acquiring of data and that's it. At its very highest level, maybe it's something like clairvoyance, but self-remembering, if you don't understand what it is, you got nothing. And self-remembering goes deep. It's something so simple. It's not a technique, it's a state of consciousness. If you do a technique like divided attention, and I call it a technique, but you're trying to be as natural as possible while having this effortless attention, then something will arise. What will arise? The unique. How do you, it's a slippery sensation though, it doesn't maintain itself, so you have to have something has to arise within you that you're able to maintain it, and if you're able to maintain it over a long period of time, this expansion happens, this extra normal perception, and out of those extra normal perceptions, qualities can arise within you that you then are able to pull into yourself. You gain experiences that you wouldn't have gained otherwise, and that comes into you, and that can create content into your cylinders. So your cylinders then have action and then have content that have arrived from an internal space outwards. You're training yourself internal outwards, and it's having an effect on your external world. It's not like this Joe Dispenza, oh, you want to change your life, change your ritual, change what you wear, wake up to good music, blah, blah, blah. All you're doing is shifting things, NLP, CBT, cock and ball torture, cognitive behavioral therapy. All people do when they want to die to the ego and all of that, they're all doing a technique, they're all manipulating. They're just shifting structures, psychic structures in themselves, in their persona. They're not changing at all. They're not dissolving their ego, they're refining their ego. They're polishing a turd and making it white, but they're still rotten inside. If you actually want to change, you need to reach the thing that's not the persona, that's not functioning, that's not the thing that was created in life, the thing that's eternal, not the thing that's temporal. Not the thing that's temporal. You need to reach the thing that's eternal. You need to touch eternity, and eternity needs to come into you. Come inside. Eternity needs to come inside you. No homo. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Did I make sense? I think that's all I got to say about self-remembering. And that's as far as I've got.